Welcome to the Baseball Happenings podcast. Our guest this episode is artist Blake Jamieson, who is featured in the Topps Project 2020 series. We'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen, and give us a follow on social media. We're at Examine Baseball on all platforms.
We're here with Blake Jamieson. That's right, artist extraordinaire. Topps Project 2020. Welcome to the Baseball Happenings podcast. Thank you for joining us before. Of course. Blake, this has been a really incredible ride thus far with Topps for you. How did the opportunity come for you to get involved?
Yeah, so it's crazy because around when they reached out to me, because they reached out to me on my website, just kind of a cold email, I actually had seen another artist named Greg Kreindler who works with Topps on a bunch of Negro League Museum stuff. And he's done a lot of work with them in the past. And I saw his collaborations and thought it would be a good fit for the type of work I was doing because it was primarily focused on portraits of athletes. And so I was actively trying to get a hold of Topps. I just didn't have any contacts there. And right around the same time, this guy, Jeff Heckman, who runs the project, reached out to me through just an email contact form saying, "My name's Jeff. I work at Topps. I have a project I want to talk to you about. Can we set up a phone call?" So we set up a call for a couple days later. He pitched the project, and then we got into kind of contract negotiations and just all the logistics. But it all happened pretty quick, getting it locked in. And then there was this hurry up and wait period because it was that must have been in October, about a year ago, actually, probably September or October of 2019. I said, okay, we're going to do this in 2020, but you can't tell anyone about it until it launches. So I'd grown up collecting cards, so I was so excited that what I was hoping would happen happened, but then I couldn't tell anybody. And so it was that was a tough 4 or 5 months before I could talk about it. Mm-hmm. And also at that point, I didn't have any idea how big it would get. I didn't know that I would make friends with other artists and connect with the hobby community in the way that I have. And everything, the print runs are higher than I expected. The press is better than I expected. I mean, every single thing of the project exceeded my expectations.
When I was first alerted to it somewhat early in the process, but even the way the messaging came to a lot of collectors, even the press was a little bit unclear about what this was. And I connected with Sophia Chang earlier on, and I connected with you, and to really watch it take off. What was the biggest surprise for you? Because initially, the print runs were 1,500 on the first cards. People were how long is this going to last? Is it 20 total? No, it's 20 times 20. When did you know that? All right, we had something going.
Yeah. So when the project first started, in my head, and there was really nothing that gave me this idea. I just came up with this number in my head. But I thought my expectations were a bad low print run would be 200, and a high print run would be 2,000. And so I kind of had done that math in my head with the royalties and stuff that the artists get. So knowing, okay, well, it definitely wasn't going to make me rich if that was the case, but it was something that I could continue working on and have consistent work through the rest of the year. And as an artist, that's a really rare thing to have. So that was exciting. I think when it switched in my head and I realized, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than I thought, is after the Nolan Ryan card came out, and then we received the Nolan Ryan cards and we sold autographs on those 70 cards, and they sold out within 24 hours. And I didn't even have them on a website. I was just messaging people on Facebook, just saying, hey, I have autographs. They're $200 or whatever. Those moved so quickly that then I'm oh man, this is going to be a big deal.
Where did that idea come to get to sign your own cards? Because I saw that you were ahead in that space, ahead of most of the other artists. Yep. Who had the foresight? Was it you? Was it your crew?
It was Tony.
Who had the foresight to say, you know what, we should buy some of these in bulk and do our own limited run?
Yeah. So Tony and I met on Twitter back in April. Yep. And he DM'd me and just said, hey, I have an idea for the project. I think we should partner up. We should do some autographs. I'll help with the shipping and logistics, and you make the art and you sign the cards. And so that's kind of how Tony and I met to begin with. And here we are.
Wow, that's a really wonderful connection, and you kind of set the standard for a lot of the other artists to start doing their own custom work. Keeping it on the cards, touring the studio here and facilities, and just seeing the quantity of it. How are you managing being the artist, and then now also running a secondary business of logistics and distribution in addition to your art?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that I've done on that is like hiring a good team. So the idea is that I should spend as much time as I possibly can either painting things or signing things, because those are really the only two tasks that I'm the only person that can do. Everything else, boxing up the cards, preparing them to ship out. Even, when you receive a lot of cards from Topps, even just unboxing them takes a long time. Taking them out of the bubble wrap outside of the, little clamshell box, and then taking them out of the baggie, and then removing the top sticker and preparing them for autos. So all of that stuff is supported by the team, which is awesome, so that I can kind of try and focus on just staying the artist. But obviously, there is some spillover where, when we're running this size operation, like I have to have my hands in some other things. And but that's fun because unlike a lot of artists that might be kind of purists that just want to paint whatever they feel like and not worry about anything from a commercial standpoint, I've always treated my art like a business and always wanted to have these types of opportunities. And so now that I'm here, I just feel like this is what I've been waiting for, and I'm ready to put in whatever work it takes.
What other opportunities have opened up for you since these cards have debuted in terms of interest in your art and collaborations with either other artists, companies, things like that?
Sure. So a couple things. Relationships with other artists has been a really, really cool thing. F. Dot and I did a collaboration a couple weeks ago. He was just here yesterday. We were doing dual autographs on those prints. I've talked to a few other Project 2020 artists about collabing, and they're interested in it. In terms of general interest in my art, it's definitely exploded. I've got, for the first time in my life, I have a waiting list for commissions, which is awesome. And, I'm, again, with the help of my team, helping manage that production pipeline kind of in parallel with the stuff from Topps, which is kind of a priority as well. In terms of other brands, I haven't really pushed for that yet because between commissions and the Topps project through the end of the year, I don't have a ton of bandwidth to do something else with another brand. And if I do anything, I want to do it 100% and really give it my best art, best effort, best attention. So I haven't pursued that. Now, if another brand came to me and said, hey, Levi's is like, oh, we want you to do something with our jean. They actually work with a lot of artists. Oh, we want you to do something with our next line. As long as I could schedule it to say, okay, well, I have these commitments that I need to meet, but after that I'm free. Let's do it. I'm certainly open-minded to it, but
you haven't found the 25th and 26th hour in the day to do this.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right. And I think you bring up a good point, right? Where you want to say yes to a lot of things, but then you have to recognize your own bandwidth.
Yep.
And then whose brand are you working for?
Right.
Right. And can you speak a little bit about how this whole process has strengthened or enhanced your personal brand?
Totally. And that even just you saying that reminded me is in terms of other brands. So we have a really cool company called Coolwick who designs T-shirts. They do a lot in the bowling industry. They make the jerseys and stuff for bowlers. It's nice. It's kind of like an Under Armour type of material or a dry fit. So they've sent us a bunch of samples. They want to basically produce a line of shirts that would be Jamieson branded. So that's kind of a collaboration with a brand, but really more putting that focus on the personal brand and building that. I think that's a huge priority for me. Just I think that's one of my own hats.
Yeah.
So I think that it's been really cool. I mean, the fact that people, want to pay for my autograph or buy a hat with my logo on it or potentially buy a T-shirt is something that's never happened to me. It never happened in the past. And now that I have this lightning in a bottle with the Topps project, I'm going to capitalize on it as much as I can and try and, grow that brand.
You talk about signed autographs. It's something came across my head and, a little bit that I've had to do over time, but then working with other athletes and doing signings with them to do autographs. How have you adjusted your signature to signing such quantity, at the same time? Because I've been with some athletes and after 100 or 200 pieces, they're like, look, I know that this is your specialty and you're used to working with your hands. Have you had to make any adjustments to your signature or condense it because of time or?
That's a good question. Yeah. So it's funny because if you look at athletes' progression throughout their careers, you'll often see the autograph shrink and get simple, more and more simple. I actually have a very simple autograph that I've had and it's funny because I can remember the exact night that when it was the first year of me being an artist. one night I sat down with a bunch of just blank piece of paper, and I was like, I have to figure out my autograph. Like, I need to come up with an autograph. And so I practiced hundreds of times in different variations and different like lengths, and I came up with one that's very simple. That's just my initials, BJ, and I've done it, thousands of times now. And unfortunately, when doing these cards in bulk, like, it's a pretty fast autograph. It's not like really. It's hard for me to mess up. Sometimes I do mess up because I'm doing so many, and I'll have to like scrap that card and pull a new one in. But I'm actually the opposite of most athletes, where like, I think the short form autograph is cool. I will continue using it, but I also would like to, at some point, maybe during this project, maybe after, come up with a little bit longer form autograph that would be more of, a special thing.
Yeah.
And so I definitely wouldn't do cards in bulk like the way that we're doing it now with a longer form autograph. I'm glad that we have something short and easy to do.
Right. Because I've been with some athletes, and sometimes they're like, "Hey, can I get the full autograph?" And I'm like, "Okay." It's a lot differently, and a few players come to mind.
Yeah.
When doing this, it's an interesting, quirk. Before we get into like your own collecting, I actually want to go into your athletic experience. Sarah, you played lacrosse collegiately. How did that experience of playing, playing a sport at the college level, kind of help you to relate to the athletes that you, are giving life to through your art?
Yeah. So I think that the best example is a question that artists get a lot is, how long did that take you to paint? And sometimes people are thinking, okay, well, if Blake can paint a picture in a day, why should I pay him a premium price for it? And, that's everything, any collector or also athletes. And so when athletes ask me that question, because of my experience in sports and understanding that, like, I played lacrosse for 1 hour during a game, but it didn't really, that 1 hour, it's not like that 1 hour is what's important. It's the double days, and it's the early mornings, and it's skipping parties and skipping, all the sacrifices you make. And so I relate that to the athletes, saying, look, don't worry about how long it takes me to make a painting. Worry about all the time that I've spent prepping to make this painting. Just like when you go out and play a football game or whatever, or a baseball game, you're not getting paid for that 1 hour for a football game or 3 hours for a baseball game. Yeah. You're getting paid because you skipped the parties and you got up early to train and you did the double days. And so having that like relatability is really good. And when I say it to the athletes, they're always like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't actually care how long the painting takes you, because as long as you've done all the prep work and you're good at what you do, you should get paid what you deserve.
Right. And they get that aha moment where they're like, oh, you just gave it to me in sports terms. Now it makes sense.
Exactly.
Right. Because it's all those hours in the heat when everybody else is like, it's too hot, I'm not going out, and you're running to your puke. I definitely relate to that. Looking behind us, we have a variety of collectibles and some starting lineups on the wall, and sealed wax, and autographs, and slab cards. Which are early memories of collecting as a kid?
This one right here. So, and it wasn't this physical card, because but this Mark McGuire card was the first card that I really remember like treasuring as a kid. I grew up in Northern California. We had season tickets to the A's, and so we followed Mark through the minors. And then when he got called up, and right off the bat as a rookie, breaking the rookie home run record, he was just so fun to watch. And so he's always like, there's nobody that even comes to be a close second in terms of like favorite athlete. And it's really cool because now, like, through this project, getting to reimagine the card of his, that actually led to him and I connecting. And he emailed me after seeing an article in MLB, and then we set up a phone call and we chatted over the phone. Like, we just texted the other day because he was autographing some of the P2020 cards. So, yeah, I mean, that's like my earliest and most dominant memory in terms of like collecting as a little kid.
McGuire was so on top of the hobby. That card holds a special place for me as well.
Yeah.
And the 87, that's, next to it. And, when people talk about prospecting, that card was $100 card easily. The thing differently back then was, right, we didn't have these special, that was like an inserted card, even though it was inserted because that 85 Topps card, the Olympics was different. It was like a rookie card that was, in the set, and it was represented like next. And when McGuire came out and hit the snot out of the ball his rookie year, it just took off, just like him and Canseco, right? They both took off, and that must have been a really fun time as a youngster being in Oakland and watching them go through, their World Series runs.
Yep.
and you know, and getting there and watching those guys really like light the baseball world on fire. It must have been a great time being out there.
Totally.
You know, because over here we were with the Mets here. Yeah.
You know, with the Cardinals, and I mean, I still, you know, I'm an A's fan, but I'm also like above everything. I'm a Mark McGwire fan, so I love it all.
Right, and then, you know, as you said, you were able to do, you know, his card for the set, and you know, kind of like a USA theme. And was that really kind of trying to merge those two cards there?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it was important to me that I stuck with the '87 tops, you know, kind of pose, and I kept the wood grain border. But I definitely wanted to kind of give a nod to the '85 because that card just meant so much to me, and I think it meant a lot to a lot of people. And so it was really fun to mix those two together, and that was definitely my favorite Project 2020 card of the set, and I can't imagine anything else even being close.
Did you get back into collecting before this project started?
I got into collecting because of the project. So before the project started, let's see, when was it? Maybe for Christmas. I went home to my parents' house in California. So my dad and I collected cards together between 1985 and 1995. We have every single card that was printed, basically. Tops, upper deck, all sets. And so I was going through, and fortunately, those cards moved around the country with our family and never got thrown out. And so, and a lot of them are still in like sealed set boxes, and then we have binders of each player and stuff. So that was really cool to kind of bust those out and go through them. I was also like looking for cards, for example, like the 91 Frank Thomas. There's an error that has the no name on the front.
Right.
It's very rare. I found out about that doing research for the Topps project, and so then I was like looking through all of our sets to see if we had it. We did not, sadly, but yeah. So that like got me like hyped again to see all of our old cards. And then when the project started, Topps sent me like a pretty nice care package of boxes, which we opened up and then we splatter painted on. And then that like once we ripped those packs, we all got really into it. So we'd go out to card stores and we'd just be buying boxes and ripping packs. And then also, like, a lot of the stuff that you see up here was actually sent by fans. Because, like, online, on YouTube, every night I stream, and I told them, like, hey, I used to collect cards as a kid. I have these old cards, but I don't have anything else. And so they're like, oh, well, you know, you should have some new cards. So, like, people sent me, like, most of the stuff up here was gifts from fans, which is, like, it's crazy how generous people are.
It is. And how does it feel for you to be able to rekindle, you know, that spirit, you know, that you had as a kid with the collecting now and being able to look at it, still some cool stuff, and I don't care if someone's going to say I'm nerding out, you know, over this. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I think it's awesome, man. I've been a collector at heart forever. And just the things that I collected changed. So I did baseball cards with my dad for a while. Then I did basketball cards with my friends in Florida. We lived there for a while. Then I did Beanie Babies with my sister. And Magic the Gathering cards, I was really into that. So, like, throughout my childhood and young adulthood, I've always collected something. And it's fun because I know that the hobby world has kind of two sides. There's the people who just collect what they love, and then there's people that are looking at it as investments, that are flipping cards or, you know, looking at the long-term value as an investment. And I'm a little bit of both in that, like, there can be cards that to everyone else they're not worth anything, but to me, I'm like, I love this card for whatever. But there's also, like, the Beanie Baby example. Like, my sister and I, one of my youngest childhood memories, like, getting close with my sister was over Beanie Babies that she like, you know, bought some and then sold them for more money. I'm like, wait, you can sell Beanie Babies? She's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's go. So, like, we would go all over town, bike to the, you know, to the collectible card store and buy Beanie Babies, and then go over to a different store and try and sell them for more. So, like, it's fun being able to, like, play both sides of that.
Yeah. What I think is interesting going on with what you're doing and what I was thinking about as you were explaining this is that the way the Topps Project 2020 has evolved, especially with the artists doing their own custom cards or custom work, how you sign cards in limited quantities, you know, there's short-term play and there's a long-term play, right? And I think that captured a lot of the short-term play. But what do you see for the long-term play as this like finishes up? What do you see as the short-term play? All right, you know, I got in, I got out of, you know, my own stash.
Sure.
And then, like, what do you think is going to be the long-term play, either A, with those cards, and B, with what you're doing as an artist?
Sure. So I think in the short term, moving the autographs is great because we have the interest. The cards are hot. They're top of mind. I want to do that. And, that helps with cash flow and helps me be able to expand my business. And that in itself, allows me to, kind of play and, try different art techniques or styles and kind of push myself. The long-term play, I think that this Topps 2020 set is going to be an iconic set. And I think that in 5 or 10 years, people are going to look back and be like, man, I should have bought more of those cards. I'm buying a lot of the cards, and honestly, a lot of them I'm stashing because I think that the long-term value, regardless of what the secondary market's doing right now, I think that the long-term value of the cards is going to be significantly higher than the retail price that everyone paid for the card. There might be exceptions to that with a few that were very, very high print runs, but I think in general, any of my cards, I think, are going to be considered super short print runs because this is not the last project I'm doing with Topps. I've already started negotiating the next several sets through 2021 and 2022. So it looks like there will be at least 4 more times working with them, and that could that could go on for however long. They've basically told me we would like to have you as an exclusive Topps artist and just working with us and not working with competitors. And I said, well, I'm okay with that as long as if you have enough work for me, if you have enough work for me, I'm down to just stay in house at Topps. So I think that if we start moving forward and I produce a set for Topps that is maybe not a print on demand web product, and it's just a box set packed or something those. A print run of those is hundreds of thousands of cards, hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
Right, your work's going to be in the hands of a much wider audience.
Right. So when that happens, and then people look back at my Johnny Baseball Topps 2020 card, which is 2,400 print run, that's going to be really hard to get. And that's a card that I don't even have that as many as I would want those. So I'm buying them on eBay right now for $150 a card. And I'm happy to do it because I think that long term that's going to be one of my rarest cards.
If I remember correctly, you did something with Mattingly Charity. Was that your card?
So Mattingly Charity is buying every Donnie Baseball Project 2020 card, having Don sign it, and then auctioning it off for charity. So that wasn't a dual autograph. That was just him autographing my card and signing it, selling it for charity.
Is there a player that's in this that's alive, that if I really have the opportunity to meet one more player that's in this group of 20 that's alive, who would it be?
Well, so I've talked to Mark McGwire. I met him as a kid, but I haven't met him since I've been an adult. So I think meeting up with him would be really cool. We do have dual auto cards coming out soon, which is very exciting. He said, hey, anytime you're in SoCal, hit me up and we'll, get lunch or whatever, which would be great. And the other ones, Jeter would be really cool. Ken Griffey Jr. would be really cool. Really, you look at the set, they're all legends.
Sure.
So anybody in the set would be a dream to me. And Ricky Henderson would be cool because I remember when we were growing up going to A's games. By that time, Ricky had been traded to the Yankees, but my dad had been a fan before I was born too. So he loved when we were growing up. Ricky was his guy and Mark was my guy. Mark was kind of both our guy, but so he would be really cool. But yeah, anybody in the set's just they're all legends. So.
Yeah, it is. This must be an exciting process for someone who grew up a baseball fan, to be able to connect with these players and put your own spin on these iconic cards because they are, like you said, they're going to project out farther, as time goes. Blake, one of your other ventures is card art.
Yes. So
How did that start and what's that about?
Sure. So when Topps sent me the first care package of cards and we opened the Heritage box, I almost immediately put them down on the ground and started splatter painting on them and kind of customizing these cards and turning any base card into a one-of-one piece of art. And we started giving those away and sharing them online, and people really responded really well to them. And so now we've kind of taken that model of painting on cards and expanded it into an actual business, which is cardart.com. And right now it's just me making art on top of existing baseball cards, and kind of the vision for the future is having a whole stable of artists and allowing them a platform to paint on baseball cards or create their own cards, not even just baseball, any sport, and use our platform to promote. And so I think that that's another benefit that I never saw coming into Project 2020 is that it would not only lead to more business for my business, it would lead to other businesses. So card art's one of them. Another one is Pretty Big News, which is the podcast I started with Matt. We're on episode 3 is about to launch, which is really exciting, and that's super fun. We have like so many awesome guests. We're interviewing, professional athletes, other artists, sports writers. It's a really cool project as well. So it's been awesome.
Right. So the business has really expanded past what you thought it was in a really short amount of time.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and also by building those type of platforms and businesses around having the platform that I do now, like those will continue no matter what. So I do hope to continue working with Tops, but if I don't continue working with Tops, now I have 3 businesses that I'm, partners in instead of just one coming into it. So it's been awesome.
If people want to get a hold of you that are listening, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, whether it's social, website?
So Twitter is where I'm most active if people want to have a conversation. Just Twitter at Blake Jamieson. And then my website is blake.art. We're migrating everything. In the past, I've had several different websites. Everything's going there now, blake.art. Keeps it simple, easy to spell. And then on Instagram, Athlete Portraits. And then YouTube, I live stream every single night, Monday through Friday, 10:23 p.m., youtube.com/Blake Jamieson.
Blake, I really appreciate your time. It was